Thank you very much.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's move this a bit. Perfect. Thank you for having me, my people. Before we start, even though it's a financial lecture, right, we are still in the presence of God. So can I please ask my brother just to give us a quick short prayer? Amen. Lord Jesus. Amen. 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 In Jesus' name. Please take your seats. Can I have the next slide, please, to start with? All right. Just housekeeping and how we plan to do this. We're going to do it together. Okay? So I want to try and make it interactive. Oh, Mike. Oh, I don't want to be standing in front of this. Okay. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. All right, so I want to try and make it interactive. Okay, so I need you to engage and talk as much. Can you all see the screen? You're squinting. Can you see it? Perfect. You would also get a copy of this. Make some notes, your own personal notes, but this will be shared. And we'll share some materials. If at any time I'm saying anything that is not making sense, just interrupt. All right? I don't mind being interrupted. You can just ask me a question. If you want to put your hand up for orderliness, I'll call you so I can just finish what I'm saying. If you want to wait until the next slide, then just please ask, right? If there's something that you want to keep to the end, there'll be Q&As at the end as well. And depending on time, we might just do some practical sessions about you starting to write something down about how you go about doing your own plans. Okay? But the objective and outline for today, and anytime I do this sort of session, is to sort of talk about the importance of planning for retirement. I think in itself, everyone understands that it is important, right? But let's talk about it. Now, I'm going to ask one question because I said I'm going to try and make it interactive, and I think I talked about it last time. As, I know we're couples in here, but let's think about it as an individual, and then you're going to write your number down, and then when we get to the number, you'll compare how well you've done against it, okay? For the minimum lifestyle in retirement, how much do you think a single person would need? Net income, so after paying taxes. You don't need to tell me, just write it down. So for a single person, how much do you think? Do you think 5,000 a year would be enough for them to live in retirement? 10,000, what do you think the minimum, right, would be required? That's the first thing, just note it down. And when we get to it, you can compare your numbers, okay? And then for a couple, what do you think they would need in retirement? For a minimum lifestyle, okay? That's the first thing you're writing down. Then for a moderate lifestyle, can we do the same thing? If you want to have a moderate lifestyle, and I'll go into some of those things later on, what does moderate minimum lifestyle mean? Moderate lifestyle means you're able to buy gifts for your grandchildren, go on one holiday or 2 European holidays a year, change your bathroom every 5 years, you know, but nothing, and then change your car every 5 years in retirement. How much, roughly, do you think? Just using your head knowledge, no? It doesn't have to be right or wrong. Okay. Those are the 2 areas I want you to think about. We would go through what planning means, right? So I'll take you through steps of what planning means. Through the grace of God, I would give you an insight into my own personal plan, okay? Not necessarily numbers, and I'll tell you why not numbers, because everyone's plan is going to be different, and you will see why when we get on. No one, it doesn't have to be the same. But what I say to people, I think I was having a conversation with Pastor Elian, maybe Elian last week or something. I said, I really don't care what your plan is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. People think retirement planning is about pension. No, it's not necessarily about pension. Because you could say, when I retire, I'm going to be selling bottles, and I don't have to move, and that will feed me. That's the plan. Okay? You could turn around and say, actually, I'm going to retire in Nigeria. I already have my 2-bedroom apartment. All I need to do is eat. Right? That way, and I have a state pension, which we'll talk about in detail. That's the plan. It doesn't have to be millions of pounds. But what is wrong and what is not acceptable is saying you don't even know how you're going to eat. Okay? And I bet most of us have said this prayer at one time or another, is that we do not want to be a burden on our children. Okay? But it's not just a prayer you say by mouth and say amen unto. It's one that comes with action. Okay? So we'll talk about that. And if there are anyone in the room, because I understand this could be discouraging, I think I'll borrow your word. Is it too late? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what sources of income do people have in retirement. Okay, but those are just examples. They're not the end goal, because, like I said, you might turn around and say, oh, I have this that will be giving me 500 every month. Okay, that's retirement, right? Everyone's retirement. Okay, and then the employed versus unemployed, which we already touched on, but we'll go through that in detail. And then also, I would finally, before we go to Q&A, talk about how do I ensure that I don't run out of money in retirement? That's key, right? Because imagine if you've saved, let's say you saved £500,000, all right? You've prayed for long life, and God has answered your prayer, you fasted. You've got 25 years after you're no longer working, and you're taking that money every year. How do you ensure that money does not run out? We look at tips, not my own tip, but proven research online, tested over several years, that says if you follow this principle of taking money out from your investment or from your savings, you can't run out of money. And I would explain, I'll give you some practical examples as well. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. Perfect. Next slide, please. 5 main objectives, okay, that we want to achieve. We need to understand the risks of not planning adequately, okay? Also, I just want to also draw out the disparity in our society, because the question might be, why are people not even doing it? Why do we not know? Why are we not planning? So what are the barriers to actually people doing something about it? I think when I did the introduction, I did share my own personal regrets for not knowing more about this, with all the time when I was working. And I think you just said the same thing, that you opted out of NHS pension. That's one pension that you never want to opt out of. But when I opted out of pension, the people that were ahead, the people that I was living with, the same pension was useless. Right? So the people ahead of you didn't know much about it. They were like, we want to take money to Nigeria, we want to take Tokunbo car to Nigeria. That was the thing at the time. Right? So knowledge was power, right? And then also to share personal experience, which I've talked about, and also maybe just to encourage everyone to say, go and do something, and if you don't know, go and seek professional advice, okay? That's the main objective of this. If everyone leaves here to go, do you know what? I've taken something from what they've said. I don't even think I have actually thought about a plan. I haven't thought about this. That's a win. I've achieved what I've set out to achieve. It's just, even for you to say, I'm not sure if I want to create it, but I'm just starting to think about it. It's a discussion in our household. That's it. We're done. Okay. I shared earlier when we were in our icebreaker. It's a constant thing and a communication in our house. All right? The kids are also involved. We talk about it on a regular. I think if my wife was like, he's talking retirement again. He's talking retirement again. I think my greatest fear comes from when I see 70-year-olds still standing at Tesco doing security. Okay? That's one of my greatest fear. To say, we've all, because bearing in mind, look at your office. How many 70-year-olds do you have in your office? I even say to people, how many 65-year-olds do you have in your office? In your team, how many 60-year-olds? So it means that the young people coming are going to take our jobs at some point. Okay? So, and we need to be able to sustain ourselves. Right? So so I have that fear. So I'm always thinking, I'm always opening my spreadsheets to look at what am I doing, where am I doing it, how am I doing this thing, right? So I'm always doing that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the problem. So, I've talked about the comfortable standard of living. 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4, so every 1 in 4, think as little as 11,500 a year would be enough to sustain lifestyle. How many people put down 11,500? Or thereabout, or below? 12 for single. Yeah, that's what you put down. When I show you the numbers. So I know in here, somebody would have put down around, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you think, in retirement, what do you need to be doing? You're not doing much. But have you heard when they say pensioners can't turn on the heating? All right. So even as a pensioner, you still pay the same heating as now. That doesn't change. You still pay the same gas and electricity. So, can I have the next slide, please? Actually, I think I've got a better number. Let's talk about why people are not before we go to numbers. Can I have next slide, please? No, the one before that. Thank you. So let's quickly talk about why our community are not doing it. I think I've sort of covered it, but let me just go through the points quickly. So one issue is people are not engaging early enough. Okay? So any of my friends that their kids start working, even at 16, 17, I always tell them, let them do it. Let them do pension. Start to talk to them about it. We're lucky that our kids are in this country, because Daniel, my son, when he was in year 6, came back and said, discuss pension. And they did a topic in their school in Maidstone around pension. Our counterparts, our white counterparts, their kids engage from 18. They start planning. So look at the number of years that they have to plan for retirement. They don't, it's not even a conversation. They don't need to say, it's already embedded. So I don't think the white Caucasian people would come and say, oh, let me talk to my son about retirement. I don't think so. I may be wrong, but it's already embedded. So it's just something you do. Almost like you drink water, you eat. So the kids start, they work in McDonald's, even if it's £10 pension, they start paying. Okay? So we are not engaging early enough. Also, there are conflicting priorities. Okay? When I talk about this, people are saying, I need to pay my bills. I don't even have any savings. And this man is saying, I need to plan for retirement. I haven't even planned for today. And I get that. I really do get that. But what I do say to people is, I always like to use very simple numbers. Forgive me. I don't like using big numbers. But if you were earning £1,000 a month, you would leave. Somehow. Okay? I'm not saying just as an example. But if that number turned to 900, would you decide you're not going to work or you're not going to leave? You still leave. So it's all in. It's all in your mind. And I get it. I've been there. All the time I opted out of planning for my future because I need my cash now. But actually, when I look back, what did I do with the cash? Yeah, I spent it. So and it just looked like there was a need for me to have the cash. Actually, there was no need. Complexity of the system. Some people don't understand it fully. All right? So if you talk about ISA, can I just, by raise of hand, how many people have ISA's account? By show of hands. I see 3 people. That's fine. How many people have ISA stocks and shares account? 2 people. Okay. Can I ask the people that didn't raise up their hand, is it because you don't know about ISA, or you just don't think, you don't know the value of ISA? Just asking. I'm going to come back to that point. All right? Anyone else? Is there any reason why you don't have an ISA? Do you know, is it because you don't know about it? What's the value? Yeah, what's the value of it? Yeah. I was expecting to hear that. No, I was expecting somebody. I've lost money too. Don't worry. It's not you alone. We've lost money. Scarred you. All right, perfect. Thank you. All right. I'll touch on it because it's one of the vehicles I'm going to be suggesting later on anyway. All right. I'll touch on it quickly now. So, Minister Gbega said, when you've matured, actually, ISA is it's not about maturity. No. So ISA is the, shall I say, is the only tax efficient way to save money. And you can use it on all of those trading 212 and eToro that you've mentioned. It's a vehicle. Make sense? So whatever you put into ISA, whatever money you make on ISA is not subject to tax. So it's an investment vehicle, a tax investment vehicle. So even if you decide, I want to have savings, I only want to keep my money in cash, you put it into an ISA so that whatever you make on it, if you want to trade on 212 or the eToro, you open the ISA stocks and shares, but you still do whatever trade you were doing. Now you see that you didn't understand it. Correct. Yeah. ISA is something that every household, every kid must have, even if it's £10, £20 going into it. Okay? All right? So ISA, when you think about it, when ISA was first introduced, it was to help people change their, how do you want to put it? To change people's wealth status. Okay? And you could take it away as a normal, like, to go and read. Go online and Google ISA millionaires. Okay? And the first people that started the ISA, when it first opened, a lot of them are now millionaires. Because what they were doing was they were using up their ISA limits. Now, and they were benefiting from compounding interest. So every time you put money into it, if you make 100,000 in that pot, it's not subject to tax. Remember, we're talking about taxes. That's the only one time they allow you to. Okay, and you could put it up to 20. At the moment, you can put up to £20,000 a year. The wife can put up to 20,000 a year. The kids, I think it's 9,000 every year. Please don't quote me on that. Is it 9? Thank you. Yeah, 9,000 every year. So all of that. So whatever money you're investing, those are the first vehicles you need to use before you use other vehicles. All right, that's all right. Most of us might not be able to do all the limits, but I just have to throw it out there to say those are nice. So my sister, to stocks and shares. Many people would have also lost money in stock and shares, and we all have. Okay. However, I would say to you, we didn't have to lose money. We did not have to lose money. We lost money because we were trying to get rich overnight. I lost money. I'm still carrying losses. All right. However, if I were to say to you that when you start planning for retirement, there are vehicles. Actually, let me go back and give an example. And I'll go back another level before I give another example. Whilst I talk about this thing, it might appear that, oh, okay, I've done my research and I know a lot about it. Okay, maybe I do. All right? I'm not going to be a bit modest about that. I do know one or two things about it. However, I go to other people that do it for a living to go and test my knowledge. So I'll get them to do a review for me. It's a free review. They talk, I see their plan, and I go, okay, it's in line my plan is looking okay, just to make sure that I'm not thinking I know when I don't know. So I go and test. And the last guy I met with, maybe 2-3 months ago, he said to me, bring your money to us and come and invest with us. He said, you know, if you gave us 200,000 of your money 10 years ago, how much do you think we would have made you by today? I said, maybe 600, 650,000. He said, no, you would have made 850,000 as of today. And these are regulated bodies in the UK. Not hidden. They're on Liverpool Street. That's where all your top wealth people go to. They go and sit down, they have coffee. They're called wealth managers. But what we did was, we had no knowledge about stocks and trading, including myself. We hear somebody saying, buy Nvidia or whatever, buy this, buy that. And then we were buying. The thing then goes up. We're smiling. We're smiling. And then all of a sudden, it just dropped. Okay? So, when people ask, I've shared with them. And then when you say to people, do you actually realize that there are things that give you as far as 10%, 15% return they say, in this country? But it's available, and you don't even have to. It's all free. I mean, it's not free. You pay for their services, but like you don't have to pay to register. They're all regulated. So all of those things, if people are interested, I would share, and I could show you, because I can't project directly myself. I'll show you the returns. All right? You don't need to give your money to anybody. But the wealth managers, that's their full-time job. We were going into a job that it's almost like I come into your field and I say, I want to come and do this. Do you understand what I'm saying? I've never done that before. I could try, but most likely this will probably drop. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's what happened, and that's why we lost money. So now when we now mention stocks and shares, whilst some people are still making a killing. Do you understand? But in a different way. So if you now call me, because now I know better, if you say, come and buy this is going up, I don't. Okay? But if I would give my money to a company, a wealth manager, that has been around for over 80, 90 years, proven, and I can see what they've done in the last 10 years, then I would do that. So that I just wanted to clarify that. So stocks and shares is not what we did and where we lost money. All right? There are, and if I have time, I will go more into it and I'll show you examples. Advice gaps, and a low level of contributions at work is off-putting. That's the last point on the bullet point. You mentioned employers contribute 3%. Who said that? Yeah. You're thinking, what's that? Do you understand? What is that? But there are other employers that contribute a lot more than 3%. Okay, that's where you go to. So when people there are some people, when they're taking a job, the first thing they ask is, what is your benefit? Not what is the salary. What are your benefits? Because they're thinking long term. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, we'll get to the juicy bits. No, you've jumped. Yeah, thank you. That's it. No, we don't want to do numbers yet. Let's get the foundation right. Let's get it. I don't. You go to the numbers, and we'll talk numbers. I promise you, we'll talk numbers. But I don't want to just jump. I want people to understand the importance of it. Okay? I said something earlier, right? And I'll say it before I go to the importance. The numbers is going to differ for everybody. Do you get what I'm saying? It's going to differ from everybody. But hopefully, you can work out what your number is. I cannot tell you what your number is. I cannot I'll give you examples. Okay? But if our lifestyles are very different, our numbers are going to be different. Okay? But we'll talk about it. I promise. We'll get to numbers. All right? If I know, because I'm not controlling that, if needs be, if I need to model numbers, I have a calculator which I would give people as well. I might have to maybe just turn this around and then maybe just get everyone together and I can model some numbers for you to try some numbers. Because numbers are quite interesting. I get it. It motivates you as well because you're going, oh, if I do £200 every month for 15 years at an average return of this, I have a calculator. Don't worry, you get it. But that is not the most important. The most important is understanding the key. And hopefully, I'm trying to get that message across. I'm not talking too much, but I'm trying to just make sure that we understand the importance of it. Now, why is it important to plan? The first thing is average life expectancy continues to rise. Okay? People are living longer. All right? People are living longer. So I said the last time when I did the introduction, think about when you want to retire. Think about a number, the ideal age you want to retire. When we start talking about it, that's the first thing I'm going to ask. So start thinking about it now. If you turn around and say, most people don't want to work until their old age. Ideally, most people want to stop at 60. But the country we're in means that you have to work a little bit longer. But if we have started at 20, yes, it's possible to stop at 55. There's some people stopping at 55, but only because they started planning earlier. Okay? If you can't, because of our plan, it may mean that we can't stop until 65. The state pension age is now gone up to 67. I think it's going up to 68 as well soon. Yeah? So by the time most of us retire, I'm looking at the room, we'll be 68, you'll be 68. All right? My prayer and my plan is not to get to that age before I stop working. Okay? My plan and my prayer is that I'm able to stop at 57. Okay? When I'm looking at my plan, because I track it, I'm on track to be able to stop at 53. Let me now put a caveat to that and explain that. People go, why do you want to stop working at 57 or 53? So what I say to people is this. It doesn't necessarily mean I want to actually stop giving up work. Okay? I can work till 65. But I want to know that I have the option to stop working. So it's two different things. So my plan is to say, because at the moment, all right, I don't know everyone's bank account or your bottom line, but for most of us, we need to go into work. Yes? Most of us, we have to go into work so that we can sustain our life and our families. But how better would it be that I'm going to work because I just want to work? You know, there's some people that do that. Right? I work with a head teacher. She's 70. She's still working. She started working. She got the job maybe about 10 years ago. So then she was asking me, do I stop this year or do I stop next year? So I said to her, if money is not an issue. I said, Doctor, I never needed to work. My husband retired with over 10 million pounds. I only came because I like the girls of this school. And I thought, how very refreshing that. You come in, and she comes in very early, 6:37. So she's only been doing work for the last 10 years because she just wanted to work. Not because, she said, I don't come here because of the money. I come here. So that's what I mean when I say, I want to be able to, at 53, 55, to turn around and say, I'm going to work because I enjoy work. Not because, so it doesn't mean that I don't work till 60, but even in those times, you can say, I don't want to work for 1 year. At the moment, I can't say I don't want to work for 1 year. I would love to be able to get a point where I say, I don't want to work for a year. So that's what I mean. Average life expectancy, go back to that. I'll show you, but I think I said it, women live longer based on the statistics because the pressure on... the pressure on us men, all right? So let me give you the numbers. It's actually a good thing that I can move my slide forward so I can get the exact numbers. You can't see that. But let me just give you some quick numbers quickly, which will be interesting. For women at age 65, 75% chance of living up to the age of 82. Somebody do the maths. So a woman at the age of 65, average life expectancy of living to 82 is 75%. That's the number of years you need to feed yourself. Or you become a burden on the children. They start sending money regularly, all right? To be quite honest, a lot of us are doing that. I don't want to, it's not a burden because we're happy to do it, and I do it, but we don't want to be that for our children, right? Because we need to plan. We don't want them to be saying, we want to teach them that they know that they're coming to visit their mommy. They bring groceries, they come and say, there's a holiday, but we're not waiting on that. Or you're not guilt-tripping them to say, I did this for my parents, you must then do this for us. But we want them to have the values to say, you look after your parents. But we don't have to wait for them to shop. One of the things I say is that we should be able to help them to make things a lot easier for them as well. Okay. 50% will live up to the age of 90. Females. 50% will live. So half, if you put 5 in 10, will live up to the age of 90. So no plan. Okay. And there's just a slight disparity. So for men at 65, 75% will live up to 79, 50% chance of living up to 87 instead of the 90. So there's about 3 years difference in between both comparisons. Okay. All right. Why do we need to plan? You can't work forever. At some point, your body would give up. Okay. Not for everybody, but I'm in my 40s, and I think one of my friends said, Dotun, we can't just get out of bed anymore like we used to just get up and go to the toilet. He said he has to get up and then sit for a while. And we all just started laughing. And then another one said, oh, when I go to the toilet, I have to sit down now. I said, guy, we're in our 40s. Okay. But it sounds like a joke, right? So by the time you get to your 60s, Uncle Ashley, what's it like? Sorry? You guys are okay. All right. So I'm going to jump because of time quickly, but you can read it later on. You said something about state pension. The importance of planning, you can't rely on state pension. However, we need state pension, but we can't rely on it, but you need it, right? You can contribute to your family. So if you've planned well, it means that you can support the children. You can support the grandkids as well, right? How lovely is it in retirement? You have excess money. The grandkids come and say, I want to take student loan. And you say, no, you don't need to take student loan. Just take, all right? And some of us, not me personally, but would have had grandparents that supported them. So why can't we do the same? Okay, is what we're saying. I've put a point in there. It's unfair to depend on your family. It's unfair to really depend on your family. Okay? People may not agree with that. Okay, but it is what it is. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, let's open up your numbers. Check. So before we started, we asked people, for people that have just arrived, to put down what they thought that you would need as a single person for a minimum lifestyle in retirement. And these are net income that you need every year. So every year, this money must come from somewhere. And bear in mind, it will go up with inflation. So can you see the difference between the UK, the rest of the UK, versus London and the Southeast? Okay, this research is done by Loughborough University, and they update it every year. So I think I was saying to people that arrived very early, by the time I was updating this slide I last used about 2 or 3 years ago, the numbers I had to increase because it's gone up by almost 4,000 on each bracket or something like, or maybe 3,000 on each bracket. Okay. You get a slide. You don't. Yeah, you get a slide. I promise. But how far wrong were you? Anybody want to just share? Because it's going to be interactive. I can't be the one talking alone. What do you think of these numbers to start with? In terms of, you went here at the beginning. So I asked people to guess what they thought the single person would need in retirement. Like how much? Do you think 5,000, 10,000, 15,000? So from what you have in your mind and what you've thought about how much you need in retirement versus what these young statisticians from Loughborough University are saying, what do you think? How do you think, does it compare to what you thought in your mind that you need in retirement? It is. No, no. No, it's not. It's not. 61,000 is not a comfortable income. When you say comfortable income, you're talking about multiple holidays a year. You're talking about changing your car every 2-3 years. All right? You've got to define what comfortable is, right? You're not talking about European holidays. You're talking about Caribbean holidays. All right? That erodes straight away. You're talking about the amount you're able to do for gift for children is different. All right? So the comfortable lifestyle, this doesn't get you that at the moment. Okay. A comfortable holiday will cost you almost 8,000. Yeah, this is retirement. Yeah, for people online. Okay, people online. I'm going to be moving away. I can't hold this though. Yeah, this is assuming a lot of things that you don't need as much anymore in retirement. So financial advisors and planners would say that you only need a third of your actual salary now to maintain a retirement. They don't go by this. Yeah? So if you're earning 90,000 at the moment, you only need, they're saying you need, well, net, you only need a third of that because they assume you no longer have rent or mortgage. Yes? The kids have already grown up, but that is not always going to be the case. If you do have those rent or mortgages, your numbers is going to go up. All of those things. So one of the things when I prepare for this is it says, what do you need money for in retirement? And we're saying health, medical care. And I said, we have NHS. Actually, but then I'm realizing as a retired person, not everything is covered under the NHS. Not everything is covered, right? So those numbers they're a guide. Please, don't think I must exactly have this. They're a guide. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that when we start talking about plans. Okay. So, can I have the next slide, please? Now, we're getting into planning now. What does planning mean? There's two parts of planning for retirement. There's the personal planning, and then there's the financial planning. Yeah? So, what does financial plan and personal plan mean? And that's why I was saying that your personal plan would determine what your financial plan means. So, the thing that I always ask is this: when do you want to retire? You've got to make this note. Okay? When do you want to retire? That's the first thing. You don't need to answer me, just make some note for yourself. I also ask the next question: where do you plan to retire? You don't necessarily need to have the answers, but think about it. Where do you plan to retire? Because you know where you plan to retire then informs your financial plan. Okay? Then, what kind of retirement lifestyle do I want? That's the third question. So some people might have said they've worked all their life and they've kept all their retirement, but would inform your financial plan. Is that making sense? When I say everyone's numbers are going to be different. So let's give some examples. If I say I plan, that's just an example, not me. I plan to retire in the UK. I want to live in London. I plan to retire at 60. Before 60, I will no longer have rent or a mortgage. And my lifestyle in retirement is a minimal lifestyle. I just want to be able to pay my bills, eat good food, go to the gym, have a season ticket to Arsenal or Chelsea. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, you may not even need 60,000. Does that make sense? But my lifestyle in my retirement is I want to live 6 months of the year in the UK. I want to be in Jamaica for 6 months. I need to have a house out there. I need to maintain 2 houses at the same time. I want to drive the best of cars because I've worked all my years. I want to enjoy my money now. Your money that you need in retirement will be different. Okay. Then there's the third person. I don't want to be in this cold weather. I want to live in Africa. Okay. I only need, is that you? You want to retire in Africa? I've done all my hard labor. I want to be on boards or support schools or local community in Africa. I already have my flat or my bungalow. I don't want to be going upstairs, built, right? So now, the amount of money you need in retirement is going to be vastly different from someone living in London. Oh, and then they might say, I want to come to London for 2 months because obviously I'm a citizen of this country. I want to come for medical checkup. But bearing in mind that when you're in Africa, you pay for healthcare, all of those things as well. Now, those conversations is quite important to start having, not even as an individual, but as a family. Because if husband wants to retire in Africa, wife wants to retire in America, we are right? So it is very important that we start to do that. So I wouldn't start saying, oh, Minister Dotun, how much do I need in retirement? I cannot tell you. It depends on what you want. Now, once you've identified what those things are, you've got to estimate what that means to you. Okay? Because I say to somebody, if you're living in Nigeria, for example, you have your house, everything, and you're getting state pension, and you're living a normal, modest life, I think you'll be fine. With the exchange rate. By the moment to buy a new car, it might become tricky. So if your car goes wrong in retirement, and you're only relying on state pension, I don't think your state pension will fund another good car, unless you save for 2 years. I don't know. But all of these things, we don't want it to be a surprise to us. Now, once you've identified those things, right, the next stage then is, how much do I need? And I've done this with friends so many times when we are gatherings. A friend of mine said, oh, I think I want 60,000 pounds every year in retirement, or 70,000. I said, yeah, good. Next question is, where does that come from? So, and I try to paint it like this. At the moment, in order for £1 to enter your bank account, you have to go somewhere, you have to work, and somebody pays you. Now, fast forward to 65. No one is paying you. Where does that money come from? For the next 25 years. Oh, no. It has to be. It has to be. And if we have not actively worked towards preparing for that day of 65, most of us will go working till 70, and most of us will go working till 75. And for me, that's not a curse. That is not negative speak. It's just a reality. If you don't plan, and only if your health permits. Right? It doesn't mean that even if you decide, okay, I'm going to carry on working. Because I've heard people say, oh, I'll just carry on working. Do you get what I'm saying? So that is pretty much how you go about it. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So this is pretty much what I've talked about, the personal planning. So if you're talking about your personal planning, what do you want to do in retirement? I talked about it. You want to volunteer. You want to do all of those things. You want to take up a hobby. You plan your personal side of things first. I met with a Swedish guy, I'll say as far back as 2012. And the guy said something which also has helped me decide my personal planning. And this is what he said to me. At the time, I think he was, and he was also very well-to-do. He's not someone that was worrying about planning. And he said, Dotun, I do not want my lifestyle now to change when I'm retired. He said, I hold a Chelsea season ticket. I own a golf membership. I have a gym membership. I live in Canary Wharf. He said, and I go on 3 to 4 holidays a year. He said, why do I want to get to retirement and change that? He said, I've been enjoying this all my life. I need to carry on enjoying it for as long as I live. Okay. And nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying we need to go with what he said. But At that time, I wasn't even thinking of retirement. I wasn't planning for retirement. But when I started thinking, I remember what the guy said. All right, Peter is his name. Said, I don't want my lifestyle to change. So when I've planned my life, if I'm shopping at Morrison's now, I don't want to say because I'm now in retirement, I need to change the shop where I shop. That's all I'm saying. If I already have this kind of lifestyle, then I need to maintain it across. Okay, nothing wrong with that. When I've asked about personal planning, I've heard people say, I'm going to downsize. All right, I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to invest some of the money. I'm going to be using it. No right or wrong. Please, I'm not saying this is... So if anything you take away from here, please don't say Dotun said this is what a good lifestyle retirement looks like. I will never say that. All right, it's personal. What I am, however, saying is, when you walk away from here and you decide, and Brother Abi goes on and say, we don't need more than 25,000, 30,000 in retirement. Go and answer that question. How do I fund this? I have a friend, and I'll share with you his plan. He said, my plan is to have 5 small properties in the Midlands and all of those, where I can buy cheap properties before I retire, and I can get £500 on each one. If I have 2,500 every month, I've paid off my mortgage. He said, I'm happy. That's the plan. So he doesn't focus on pension. I will not talk to him about pension because he has a plan. My other friend that said, I want £70,000, he could not articulate where that £70,000 was going to come from. Now, this other guy is looking for 2.5. 30K, thank you. He's not looking for much. He said, 2.5, Oma told me, like, he said, and I can buy cheap properties. That's his plan. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay? So the question, but the guy that said he wanted 7,000, I'm going to, what he then said was, this was in the middle of it, he said, I'm going to set up a managed service company. That company is going to be generating millions. I'm going to be, I will have stuff. So I said, God be the glory when that happens. I said, but today, let's fast forward to you at 65. You want 70,000. Where? Where does this come from? Can I just also say something? The 70,000 does not need to come from one. When I get through, you see different sources. It doesn't have to come from one source. Okay? I said to you, I would talk to you about my plan. I'll give you. I have 5 different sources. Do you get what I'm saying? And even one other source might give me, the way I look at it is, if I'm looking for 3,000 a month, if I have a sure source that can give me 500, that's 500 sorted. Tick, my plan, 500. Yet it's sure, that's guaranteed. Okay? If I'm looking for, let's say, what number did I say? 3,000, yeah? So I'm looking for 2.5. What's the plan that will cover the 2.5? So you might not have one plan that will give you 3,000 a month. You can have 8 different sources. Do you understand? You can have one source to say, I'm guaranteed this. So people have pensions that they've gone in their workplaces. I'll give numbers on this one because it's nothing major. Remember I said to you when I worked in the education industry before going on my own for maybe 16 years. And in all that 16 years, I think I only paid pension for 2 or 3 years. And that 2 or 3 years that I paid pension for would give me around about £5,500 a year in my retirement. I then still go, Dotun, you messed up. Imagine if I did that for 16 years before. Now, but as far as I'm concerned in my plan, that 5,500 a year is ticked. So if I'm looking for 40,000, 5,500 is ticked. Now do you get it? And that's, so the plan doesn't have to be like massive. It could even be on paper in your family to say, okay, in retirement, we're going to be looking for X amount. Where does this come from? And that's basically what the financial advisors will do for you. They just do it in a fancy way. All right? And they obviously put in inflation and all of those things. But for you and I, if you know this is what I'm looking for, where does this come from? That's it. Okay. Now, financial planning. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm sorry if I'm not getting into the mic properly. I've talked about this as well. And I think Minister Abbas said investment and savings, and that's where it comes from. Perfect. Will you have adequate funds to provide for the kind of retirement lifestyle you envision? That's the question. That you envisioned. Do you get it? Not that anyone's telling you, that you envisioned. Would you have enough? Remember, your income will likely come from 3 general sources, okay? Government pensions, employment-related sources, or your own personal investment, right? I'm not sure if there's a 4th source. If you can think of one, I'm happy to add it onto the slide. But I think that's generally where it will come from. Now, if you've not done anything to actively make that a possibility, you get to 65, you are 0. Your retirement will be more enjoyable if your income is structured to fit your life choices. If you've developed a retirement plan to protect your assets, you have worked hard to acquire. Simple as that. You don't want to get to that and start selling stuff. You don't want to. Okay. Next slide, please. I've already done the next slide anyway, but it'd be good for you to say it. Life expectancy for male and female post-retirement. I'll just give you a few seconds just to look at that. Those are the numbers I was giving you earlier. It's a good thing, but in a way, it also means that your plan needs to be robust. Okay. It is a good thing. Any questions? You can interrupt me for people that have just come in. If you have a question, just put your hand up. You don't need to wait till the end. It's interactive. Is this new to anybody? Did anyone even know this before? Have you looked at it before? But I know you have. Okay. Because, Uncle Ashley, you are there now. You are actively looking. Okay. So, we've all prayed for long life. For many of us, 100. Auntie is shaking her head. But as long as your plan is working and the income keeps trickling in. Guys, can I just also say to you, this is another thing. Planning for retirement is also a means of wealth generation, passing on wealth generation. Because those investments that you use will be passed on to the next generation, as long as you plan well. Okay. Sorry? Absolutely. Absolutely. I never get involved in whether because most of the graduate people will talk about enjoying now, passing on to the next generation. I have a friend who's saying, I've given my kids a good education, send them to independent school. They can fend for themselves now. Yeah, everyone's going to be different. My personal view, I'm keen on wealth generation and passing on to the next generation. I had a prayer point back in Stafford Road, and I'm sure maybe most people might have said the same prayer points. My prayer points are very short, and they're very specific. The financial struggles that I went through, all right, my children must not start at that. My second prayer point back then at Stafford Road was, even if I don't achieve millionaire status, my kids must not start from 0. All right. Now, do you get those two things, right? I started from minus, not 0. My minus was as a result of my recklessness. Bought expensive car, bought alloy wheels, used credit cards. Most of us did, right? Well, no, me and Mr. Gbenga. We did back in the days when we were younger, right? We're still young. So we were in debt at some point. So that's why I said we started from minus. So, okay. So I say today, I say it, I don't care, but they cannot start from 0. So while some people might not agree about wealth generation, for me, they can't start from 0. All right, and I'm not going to say I want to give them money because I want them to be spoiled, but they can't start from 0. Simple as. Sorry, someone is nodding his head. No, 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 no. It's not about not liking life insurance. You're talking about an area of expertise or somebody that sat in the room. So, can we speak up, please? Yeah. No, no, yeah.
In case while you are struggling or doing your hard work to get to where you want to get with regards to the financial planning he's talking about, if something unexpected happens, that's when the life insurance kicks in. It's protection, it's not an investment. Yeah, so the way you coined it is like the kids are going to get. No, it's different.
It's different.
So the life insurance that you mentioned is the protection against the investments you are working towards your retirement. So when you get to that 65 or 60 or your intended retirement age and you go on, enjoy yourself, that protection has gone.
They don't protect you into 70s or.
They can,
But it's high.
but the question I always tell people is, why would you retire at 60 or 65 and you're on pension and you're still paying premium?
And because he wants to put it into a trust.
It's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. So if you put it, so don't mix it up. If you put it in a trust, you are saying, if anything happens to me while I'm doing my financial planning, I'm working hard, I'm doing all these things for my kids, I'm trying to grow my wealth and all that. If something happens to me in that time, the life insurance you did now gives that lump sum that you have been working for, paying that 20, 30, whatever you're paying every month. So let me give you an example. Like he said, based on your planning for your retirement. So let's say you want to be worth, for argument's sake, 500,000 pounds. Yeah, and you want to be spending 50, whatever, 10 per month or per year. So while you are working towards that goal, before you reach that your retirement age, you now did a protection. Should in case anything happens, because we don't know what happens tomorrow. So you now did a protection to now safeguard yourself, because you have dependents, financial people that depend, the kids, maybe your loved ones that that, okay, as I'm doing my work, as I'm planning pension and all that, if anything happens to me in that process, which is unexpected, which is not planned for, that is when life insurance kicks in. No, it's now a choice. Based on what he said, it's still a choice. You can decide to stop at 65. Most insurance providers give up to 75, 80. But my own argument would be, why will I still be paying at 75, 80 when I'm supposed to be resting? I've provided that protection till I was 70 or till I was 68. And by then, my kids should be like 30, 40. No, don't mix up this lump sum.
All right.
That is what I'm trying to say. Depending on No, there's no payout. It's not a waste of money. It's a protection. So the question I always ask, I always use a very simple analogy to explain to people when they talk about this insurance thing. I say, okay, you have a house. You employ the security guard. You are paying the security guard XYZ every month to provide security, protection against theft, against armed robbery, against all sorts. You even have a CCTV camera everywhere. So after the year, no armed robber came, nothing got lost. Are you going to tell the security guard to pay your money back? And so that is what insurance is for you. It's providing that protection while you are striving for the... Yes, so because we all don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Some people step on the plane and the plane crashes. Some people step out in the day and they have a car crash. Nobody knows. So the 20, 30 or whatever that you mentioned that you are paying is to provide that protection and gives you that lump sum, or not you, gives your dependents, which you have put in the trust and beneficiaries, so that because the life was cut short, there's still no...
All right, let's... You have a question? Okay.
Yeah. No, no. You will determine the length of your policy, but as advisors, we always say 65, 8, 70 max.
But you can do more.
But you could do more.
But it just be more expensive.
But more expensive. So the
More
longer,
cost.
yeah, and because at that time other things kick in, old age, maybe one ailment comes in, and also rather, provide, like you said, the protection. It's a protection. That's why it's not an investment.
All right, guys. Okay, let's go back. Thank you, bro, for just giving us that insight. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. I need to move now because of time. Okay, when should I start? Anybody? Don't read. When should I start? Yeah. All right. Ideally, you should start saving in your 20s. Ideally. So key message, young people, even at church, family, you've got to have this conversation with them, okay? Ideally in your 20s. Is it too late for me to start now? Good news is it's never too late to start, all right? Even in your 40s or in your 50s, it's never too late to start. The challenge is when you start in your 40s and 50s is you need to do more, all right? What you should have done in 40 years, you now want to do in 20 to 15 years. Okay? And that in itself is a challenge. All right? However, if you decide, I'm just going to bury my head in sand, I'm not going to do anything, then it's zero. Like I said to you, remember earlier, I'm looking for 30,000 a year. Even if what I do now only generates 7,000 a year, that's 7,000 done a year. Okay. Next slide, please. I've already talked about the next slide in my ranting on, but let me just quickly mention it. Where do I wish to retire? Where do I want to retire? How much do I need when I retire? Remember? I said that. Right? That's got a whole slide on its own. And there are links within here that gives you advice as to places you can go to get the information. Sources of income in retirement. I said I was going to mention this. Paid work. I don't want that sort of source of income in retirement. You don't want it to? Okay. But paid work is still a source of income, right? People go and do part-time jobs. Okay? So that's one. State pension. I'm going to spend maybe 2 minutes talking about state pension. Uncle Ashley is nodding. State pension is quite good. Correct. Okay? But unfortunately, it's not guaranteed. Not everyone is guaranteed to get it. Okay? You need a qualifying period. I think the rules have even changed, but I'm going to tell you from what I remember. You need 35 qualifying years of you paying national insurance for you to get the full state pension. That's the first thing. If you've paid less, then what they do is, I think the minimum is you need to have contributed for 20 years. I would verify those numbers before. Minimum is 20 years. So if you've not done the full 35 years, you know that small money we're saying that is not a lot, then they will then prorata that. What I mean by that is, let's say you're meant to get £11,000 if you've done the full 35 years. If you've only done 27 years, they might give you only 9,000 a year. So the money that was not a lot to start with comes down. Now, what can you do about it? Because there is something you can do about it. There's a link which is being shared. Log into your HMRC account. Go and have a look at your NI record and look at how many years you've qualified for. For some people that came to this country in old age, not old age, as an elderly person or maybe in their 30s or 40s, you might not have done that. But have a look at your record. So at least you know whether you're on track for 35 years. Okay? Have a look. Have a look whether you have years that you didn't contribute enough. Maybe you didn't work fully in that year and you're short. It will tell you. And then it will tell you whether you can buy that year. You can pay extra so that they will count that as a year for you. All right? So you look at how many years you have, look at your plan back and go, oh, I said I want to retire at this age. Actually, it might mean that I still need to start doing small work so that my NI is still contributing, so that by the time I get to 68, I have my full state pension. Does that make sense? Because imagine you say, oh, I'm self-employed. I'm doing my own stuff. I'm not filing my stuff. I'm not doing my NI. You're losing out on your state pension. Even if you were ill for a year, people that are looking for work, you can go to, I'm going to say, I don't know what they're called now, job center. I don't know what they call something different now. They still call job center. Okay, job center. You can go to them and say, can you give me the year because I was looking for work? They'll give you a full year if you're looking for work. For women, the years where you took off of maternity, where you were not working, you're not contributing fully, you can actually have gone back to them and say, I was on maternity. Can I have that full year? All right? So they need to count towards. You need to make sure that you are looking at that record. So I said I'll share personal experiences. On my spreadsheet, I know how many years I had so many years ago. I know when I get to my 35 years, and it's on my plan. I have it on there to say, how many years do I need? Now, what's important is we said sources of income. Remember, I said to you, 5,000. So if I now add 11,150, and by the time I retire, it'll be a lot more, but let's just assume I'm getting up a little bit. So now it means that at 68, whatever the case is, God willing, long life, I live beyond, I'm already secured 17,000. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's, it's not a, don't make it complicated. It's a very simple thing. Just be very logical about it. Say, where does this come from? So if you know I'm on track for 11,000, okay, at 68, that one don't show. If you've done work in some places before, go and get your state. If you've worked places, you should be getting pension statement. They should tell you how much is projected for your retirement. Add those two together. Okay, that one is secure now. What else can I now start to do? Savings and investment. Sorry, did you want to say something? Per year. It's actually quite interesting. It's worth reading. Per year, you get that. If there's a surviving spouse, then they get half of that. It passes on to your surviving spouse as well. Yeah, so there's that. If people don't understand it well enough, but I know, for example, my late father-in-law, even though he only worked, so there are people that have worked in this country only for 4, 5, 6 years, because the time that they worked many years ago, the qualifying criteria was different. So whilst he was in Nigeria, he was getting the state pension from here. Albeit, it wasn't a lot of money, but when you change it to Naira, it was quite a lot. And God rest his soul, when he passed on, they started paying 50% of that to my mother-in-law. Does that make sense? But if you're not even aware of these things, so you need to go and familiarize yourself with state pension rules. How much do I get? Am I on the qualifying period? If there's a year you worked and it's not showing, you want to call them and then understand, because that fits into your personal plan. Even if you just maintain some small part-time work so that your NI is still running, from, I want to stop at 60, but you've not yet, you still need another 6 years for you to get full state pension. You might still want to maintain a small part-time job, even if it's reading or marking paper for somebody, so that NI, even if you were to open your own, all right, so let's just do this. I don't know. Okay. Property, okay? That's one of the things that some people might decide to do, all right? So some people might say, I'm going to have 2 buy-to-let properties or 4 buy-to-let properties. I'm going to have income from that. If you've already got that, that's the plan. add up what your projected income would be. Obviously, think about if you still have a mortgage on those properties, then it's the net of that, repairs and maintenance, taxes. All right, that's the plan. And it may just be that somebody will say, I have 2 properties. The income on those 2 is enough for me to live in retirement. You're done. Okay? I would still say, try and get your state pension benefits. The state, yeah? It still makes sense. Don't just say it's 11,000. It's still a lot of money. Okay? All right? Other income. And then the big one is pension pots, which we don't like to talk about. For employed and, if you're working, all right, please don't make that mistake. Don't opt out. Even if the struggles are real, I understand, you need to pay the bills, but when you opt out, you're losing money from your employer. Your employer will not pay into your pot if you don't pay. You are agreeing? Yeah.
And then, at one point, I opted out of it. Then I realized even that didn't even help with the whole thing. So just to echo that, what you just said.
Yeah. So do try. I understand. Don't think this guy is insensitive. He doesn't understand what the real situation in life is. I told you I did the same. But if I can go back, if I can really go back, I would do it differently. You wanted to say something? Same.
I didn't see any difference. I just
went back in. Okay. All right. So, can I have the next, just go 2 slides forward? Yeah, next one. Paid work, go next one as well, please. If you stop on there, please. Sorry, go on. I will.
We'll come back to it.
I'm going to get to that.
Thank you, sir.
There's a whole section and page on saving and investment. No worries. So state pension, I've already talked about. I'm obviously trying to do this from memory, just trying to get through in time because, so on there, if you see the link, when you get the slide, on there, that link is where you go and check your credit eligibility level. Okay? Log in, your details will come up. It will tell you how many years you have. It will show you all the past years. It will show you who you worked for. Right? And you will see if there's any years you can buy. When I looked at mine, I'm not going to hold the mic. Sorry, guys. I can't. It would kill the flow. I'm not, but I am your pastor that knows how to hold mic and talk. Let me just do this. Sorry, guys. When I looked at my one many years ago, I realized that I had some years that I could buy, but I didn't buy it because I still, knowing my age and the years I still have to work, I knew I could still meet my 35. That makes sense. So there was no point of me wasting money to go and buy years. So you look at it, obviously look at your age. If there's option to buy and you're thinking, I might not get it 35, then you might want to buy because the more years you have, the more money you get for your retirement. Sir, Uncle Shegun.
Sorry, what do you mean by buying more years?
Okay. I actually explained it before, but I'll go back. Maybe I didn't explain it well enough. No, just in here, but I might not have explained it well enough. So, sorry, let me correct one mistake. I said you need about 20 years minimum to qualify. I'm just looking at my notes. It's usually at least 10 years qualifying years. So I said that was it. At minimum, but 10 years qualifying to even get anything. All right? But then you're saying, so between 10 and 35 is what you need. 35 is full. So if you get halfway, they will prorata how much you get. Do you get what I'm saying? So you won't get full. To answer your question, Uncle Shegun, so in order to have a full year, you need to have paid a certain amount of NI contribution. Okay? I can't remember the number from memory, but take, for example, the minimum contribution for the year is £500 or £800. But in that year, you only paid £400 because you only worked for 6 months or 3 months in the year. They would have an option for you to buy the remaining credits so that year will come full and it will count towards your qualifying year. So it's for its money. You have to pay to buy it. Okay? So they might not be need to buy it. You might not even have an option because if it's, I'm doing this from memory, but maybe within the last 7 years, if it's like more than that, I think, there's only £100. You just be going, the option will be grayed out. I guess with anything in this country, you can always call them and say, oh, I didn't even know about this, that I can buy it. Is there any way you can open this up for me or whatever? But there's a number of years. Sister,
Yes,
Lambe,
I
I'll
just
come to you,
wanted
sir.
to, thank you, sir. I just wanted to say, so when you say buyback, that means that you would then have to increase the amount that you're paying in terms of your national insurance.
No, you.
Or what do you mean exactly?
You
by
pay
buyback?
cash. You transfer money to
pay cash.
HMRC to fill up that year.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, and sometimes it's not always that cheap. It could be 600, 700 pounds that they ask you to pay. So when I looked at it, I didn't need to buy because I have the years, God willing, I'm working and I'm contributing. So I'll be able to make my 35 years up even before retirement. Because remember,
to buttress that point,
Yeah.
and whilst you were talking, I just checked mine now.
Good.
And I was asked to buy 2018 to 2019. It wasn't a full year for me.
Yeah.
So I was given an option to buy, and it was £79. 79.
That's cheap.
79
pounds. All right. Uncle Abba, thank you so much because actually you're practicalizing it straight away in here. All right, that's really amazing. It's not going to be 79 pounds for everybody because that's him on that year, and you would have known the reason why you didn't fill up that year. It will come to you straight away because it will tell you who you were working for. Do you understand?
I started employment for that year in September.
Yeah.
So it wasn't full year, so I know that.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions about NI? This bit here, a lot of people are not aware of it, and after the session, people always go back and check. Go on. Sorry? You never checked it before? Yeah. So I think the assumption is you assume everyone gets state pension. Okay? Also, people that are not working, that are, let's say, a wife in a family that was looking after the family can get qualifying credits as a housewife. He's saying, I was looking after the home. I believe so, but please do Google it and check. Everything is available on Google. Okay. Next slide, please. So we've talked about pension. I'm not going to go too much into this. We've talked about the benefits and the importance of pension. However, I do want to talk about people that are not employed, that are self-employed. Okay? All right, so for those people that are self-employed, it is quite key because you don't have anyone paying into your pot. All right? I think someone asked earlier, why do contractors get paid more than people that are employed? For that simple reason. There are benefits for people that are employed that people that are not employed get. So when you see that daily rate that flashes in your eyes, actually they've paid you all your benefits. They've paid you all your benefits. You've taken your inheritance in advance. And you have eaten it. So it is actually, that's what I was thinking. It's a prodigal son situation. So when they pay you, a large chunk of that should not be touched. And there is something called SIP, all right? Self-invested personal pension. Okay? Is what they created for people that are self-employed. So you take a big chunk of that out. I personally do that. Right? So every month I get paid, I close my eyes, I take a big chunk out, and I put it in there. And I use a calculator. Right? And I use a calculator, and I put it in there. It's also got its tax incentive as well, because it's tax deductible. All right? So if you pay money into your SIP from your personal account, the government will gross it back up for the taxes that you've paid up to the standard rate. Okay? So that's a good thing. So they always gross it up back for you. For me, I don't get that benefit because I pay from my company. So my company then pays into my personal pension, but it's still that tax deductible because you pay less corporation tax on that. But for anyone that sees the daily rate and thinks this is raining season, it's all a mirage, a big part of that is for you to save for your future. Somebody raised up their hand before.
I was going to ask
Yes.
you, that's the first part of the question. I was going to ask you, does the government pay into the SIP for you if you put in money in every month, or if
Yes.
you put in money in every
Every
year?
month.
Every month. They pay money into. How much do they pay?
I think it's 25% from every.
25%.
Yes.
Okay.
So for every 1,000 you put in, they put 250 in. So they're grossing back percentages. I would make sure I double check, but I think it's 25%. I don't do it. All right, but I think it's 20 or 25%, but I can check it anyway quickly. I would have it in my notes here, but I think it's 25%. Sorry.
If you need self-employment on the side as well, you're fully employed,
Yeah.
would you suggest that you also put in a bit into SIP
Okay.
as self-employed?
Great question. Did everyone hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. I would never suggest you put money into anything. Remember what we said earlier? It's based on your plan. Okay? If your plan does not require you to put money into SIP, don't do it. Do you get what I'm saying? All right? If your plan is to have 10 buy-to-lets, you tell me, Dot, why do I need a SIP? You get it now? All right? But if your plan is short, I'll put all the money on the self-employment into my SIP. Did I get it? So it's all about building up. If your plan is good enough and you don't require a SIP, you don't need to do it. If you need it, so I cannot tell you because I don't know your plan. I don't know how much you need. But if what I can share with you is when I started doing my plan, I already lost out on years. So I'm aggressively putting in money into SIP. Right? But only because SIP is one of my strategies. Remember? Now we're talking, how many strategies of mine have I shared personally with you now? Can anyone pick up? 3. Anyone remember?
State pension, SIP pension.
Thank you. Right? That's 3 so far. Okay. So for me, it's in my own strategy. So therefore, I have to put money in. What I have done is I've worked out how much I want to be able to get from my SIP every year. I work backwards. Okay. How much do I want from this SIP? In order for me to get this amount from my SIP, how much do I need to get to? Okay? How many years do I have left to contribute into that SIP? Therefore, every month or every year, I must put in X amount. Okay? And I do it religiously like something is chasing me. Because in order for the plan that I've written for Dot Yink's household, because we have a family plan, it's not an individual plan, I would recommend for couples to have a family plan rather than individual plans. That is it. If I don't do it, if I mess around with that, then I've just written a plan for nothing. And what I'm saying to you is I'm just chatting, theory. Okay? And for the years I've been doing it, I can see it working. So actually that's also encouraging. It's like, okay, this thing is working. So I said to you earlier, I gave you the years. My initial plan is 57, right? But I'm saying 53. Guess what? Because the plan that I set, what I'm working towards, is currently ahead by 4 years. Not because I said I want to do 53. Okay? So you could set a plan. Then you either achieved or not achieved. Or you've exceeded. Mine, to God be the glory, I've exceeded. Makes sense? Okay. Next slide. So savings and investment is another means of income. Okay? I think you asked about savings and investment. So, guess what? That's my strategy number 4.
I'm not surprised.
Okay. And I touched on it earlier. So I try to use the ISA. Okay. So what have I done on the plan as well? I've said, how much would I like to be able to take out from the savings every year in retirement? How much does this pot need to be? Therefore, how much do I need to save every month? Okay. What's always good, and I think people always say this, right? I think for some of you, you might see my WhatsApp status and all the military enjoyment and all joke, right? But I will never do any of those things if I've not done my plan. Okay? So what you see online could be misleading. I will never book a trip until I've ticked off that plan. Okay? I share it because I'm talking to family. Okay. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to say to someone. Okay, so I mentor people with their finances. All right, and bearing in mind, remember, I think I said this. For me, I think this is a calling. I don't charge for it. I do it for free, and I enjoy doing it. But someone said, "But you need to tell them not to travel. They can't be doing holiday." I said, "How can that come from me?" They said, "But you still need to say it." I said, "But me that I'm packing bag and I'm flying, and I'm going to say to you, don't travel." However, the situation requires them not to travel. Making sense? Okay. So you can't invite me on a travel if I've not met my plan. Remember, I said to you, this is personal. So if my plan is £2,000 a year, that must be done first before I buy a ticket. Because I know if I don't do that, it's going to tell. Now, I also understand some people say, I need to enjoy now. And that's absolutely fine. So as long as you're happy to just enjoy now, and you're saying I don't need a plan, that's also fine. You see, you could say you don't need a plan. That's also a plan. Because it's conscious. Am I making sense? I want to live for now. Don't worry, tomorrow will look after itself. But then you can't get to 65 and start to cry because you actually said I don't need a plan. So that's fine. So, savings and investment, ISA, okay? ISA stocks and shares. And I'm not talking going to trade or gamble with money. Two different things, okay? Where's my phone? I'm going to share some percentages with you quickly. Only because I think I sent it to someone yesterday. I'm trying to remember. Someone said to me, actually I do remember now who I sent it to. My pilot friend. All right, so I'll read out some numbers. All right, I can share this as well. Actually, before I read out the numbers, so when you're doing saving and investment, you need time. Okay? Your money is not going to double overnight. All right, I'm not going to tell you, I can give you somewhere where if you put your £10,000, it becomes 20,000 tomorrow. The moment you bring that to me, to say, Dotun, we can double your money in 12 months, I'll run. Okay? Please take down this number. I'm not saying you need to use it, but in my plan, on any investment I look for a minimum, actually. I don't let me use the word minimum. My target is a 6% return per annum. I want to explain that. That's low and that's small. Don't get me wrong, though. It's low and it's small. But for the Dot-Ying's plan, 6% works for us. So as long as I have the number of years, and every year is moving along with compound interest by 6%, the plan will be achieved. Now, so somebody listening will say, that's not ambitious enough. 6% is not a good return. I get it. But for my own sanity, I'm not looking for 20%. I'm not looking for 30%. I'm not saying don't go and look for that. Please, get it right. But my personal plan for it to work, as long as I achieve 6% every year, come on, just small. I'm all right. Right? Now, somebody then said to me, Dotun, where you talk about this ISA investment, what sort of return is available? Your money can go up and down. Okay, but I'm going to give you some numbers. You might want to write it down so that you can see it. There's an investment fund through a company called Vanguard. Okay? In 2023, the return on the pot of money was 13.47%. 2022, minus 6.25%. 2021, 19.15%. 2020, 7.2%. 2019, 21.03%. 2018, minus 5.04%. 2017, 13.27%. 2016, 26% return. 2015, 3.49%. So it's not going to be rosy every year. All right, I'm going to go back at it. 2014, 8.97%. 2013, 20.81%. 2012, 11.82%.
Can you share that?
You have to pay for that one. You have to do offering. I'll share it. Now, remember what I said, my personal plan. What am I looking for?
6.
Is that giving me that?
On average, that one would be 12%.
Absolutely, on average. So can you now see when I said 57 is becoming? So it's not magic. I'm not doing extra juju or anything. These guys charge per annum. They charge 0.22% to a maximum of, I can't remember, maybe 500 a year or something on your pot. So whatever they make, so your interest is aligned. The more money they make, but that's a 10-year. And guess what? On that, they have other products that may actually offer you more. Right? But I just stick to that one. So when I even tell people, I say, do your own research. They have like almost 2, maybe 50, 60. But this is the one I do. It's giving my 6%. And you might, and I think I had somebody say, why are you just so chilled and laid back? I know where I'm going. I'm not racing. I'm not trying to become Molowo Gigi. Let me just be trickling along. Now, call it laid back, chilled. I'm good. Because my plan works. I'm able to enjoy my life now. Do you understand? I'm able to do this. And everyone, okay, we're good. And this also guarantees what I said, wealth generation. Passing to the next generation, wealth transfer. Any questions?
So Vanguard, like you just mentioned.
The other ones, though, not just this one.
Yeah, is this with those like, what do they call
Wealth managers.
Something wealth rates, or what are they called?
Agri Lansdowne, yeah. I do Agri Lansdowne as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
because, and there's Money Box, because I used to use Money Box
Yeah.
for
So
shares
does everyone understand what mutual fund is? Should you want me to explain how this thing works? Okay. I'm not a professional trader, all right? So I'm not an expert. But what I found is this, and actually, our Yoruba people, they have proverbs. Let me explain what mutual fund is, and I'll explain back to Yoruba adage in a minute. Mutual fund is a regulated company in the UK, or even in America or Canada or wherever. They come together, they pool their clients' funds together to invest in multiple companies in one go. So this fund is about £5 billion, right? Is invested in over the top 400 or 500 companies around the world, right? So the moment those companies are doing well, your pot is going up. So if I put £1,000 in order for me to lose my entire 1,000, you have to lose the entire 5 billion because I'm only a proportion of the mutual. Are you getting it? Which is never going to happen. The only time that happens is if they drop a nuclear bomb. No, yes, the world has to go. You're talking of the like of all the top companies going bust at the same time. Now, this is where the Yoruba adage comes into it. If you take a single piece from the broom and do this, what happens? If you take a hole and do that, that's what mutual fund is, and that's how I explain it. Okay? There's FTSE, there's NASDAQ. So I find myself just looking at what's happening on the market, and then you see the movement. You wake up in the morning and there's money. I kid you not. But it takes years. It's not overnight. So in the first few years, the interest is not enticing, all right? Because you don't have a lot of money in there. But on a monthly basis, this thing moves and swings 1 or 2%. Okay? Now let's take big numbers for that. You manage to build up your family pot to £1 million, and in retirement, it moves 2% in a month. You. Even at a pot of 300,000. But it takes years to get to that 300,000. It takes years to get to that 500,000. I escorted a friend of mine to go and purchase a car a few years ago. I can't remember the area, but it's before far out. And the guy we got talking, it was an Asian guy, and he said, oh, my brother stopped working. His portfolio is invested in mutual funds about 4.5 million. And I thought, yeah, a 1% movement is 45K. I said, sometimes the pot moves by that day. He said it doesn't wake up until 11:30. So, and then I was joking in my head, only if I can find someone that can just leave 1 million. Say, let me hold on to it. I will use it, I will put it in here. So sometimes, even properties, they're good, but sometimes the movement, how you wake up and smile and you want to travel. Okay. Next slide, please. There's not much to say about the next one. But this is property. People have options. The downsides, you can take a lodger in retirement. The kids have gone out. Some people will say, in my plan, I'm going to be getting £700. It'd be good for me to even have company in the house. Okay? But you might say, why would I want to share my house with somebody? That's up to you. If your plan says, I'm going to enjoy all my money now, when I get to retirement, I'm going to downsize, I'm going to rent one room out, that's your plan. Okay, but have a plan. Yes, ma'am, go for it.
I just wanted to ask, what are your views on lifetime ISA? Because I think it's also quite linked with property. I only found out about it maybe a few months back.
Okay. All right. It's a good thing I can answer that. Lifetime ISAs are amazing. Okay. For most people in this room, you probably can't get it because you need to be under 40 to be able to get it. Okay. All right. But for your children, you need to encourage them to get it. Youth's coming up. So basically, what a lifetime ISA is you, and I have one too. I had it from years ago though. What it is you can contribute up to £4,000 into it, and the government adds £1,000 every year. Okay? You cannot withdraw from the pot until age 55, 57, thereabout. However, if you're buying your first property, you can withdraw the funds with the government bonuses to use as a deposit. Okay? But if you're not buying a property, you cannot withdraw that money until, actually I remember the age now, it's currently 55, it's going to be 57 in a few years' time or something like that. But you get the gist. So once you start putting money into it, it's locked up. But that 4,000 you contribute is part of your 20,000 annual allowance. It's not extra. So if you use that, you can only use 16,000 in the ISA. And the money you put into your lifetime ISA, you can also invest in things like this that I've just shown you, I've just talked about, or ISA stocks and shares. But the idea of somebody giving you £1,000 back is not, of course, is a good thing. Interestingly enough, I have it, and I don't think I've used mine in 2 years. All right? because there are some other things that are giving me a lot in terms of, yeah. And then because my lifetime ISA is with Agric Lansdowne and I'm not enjoying Agric Lansdowne, I just ignore it. But for anyone, it's a good thing. There are some things that are also good that I would share, but they're also stocks and shares. But property, buy to let, if that's your thing. Before I mentioned, if you want to hire a lodger or have a lodger in the house, that could be, in my plan, I'll be getting £600 every month from lodger. That's your plan, right? That could be something you decide. Downsize. Next slide, please. Next two things we've talked about, state benefits. Depending on how much you have and what assets you have, you may be entitled to some state benefit, right? I almost want to say, may we not get to that stage where we have to rely on it. But if it's there, it's a lifeline, right? If for some reason we find ourselves in that position, there are things called pension credits. I don't know much about them, but I really don't want to know much about them, but they're available and we can look at that. Another income, inheritance, spouse, pension. Remember I talked about it. So even if you have a spouse and they pass on, you might be able to get some of their benefits as well. So all of these things you need to keep your mind into it. I'm going to rush quickly through the next few slides because it's now 10:25. Next slide, please. Okay. I've just said this, all right. Saving into a pension is one of the most sensible financial steps you can take, right? I think I've stressed that enough, all right? It's amazing. You need to think about it. However, if you're saying to me, actually, it's not part of my plan, then that's fine. Do whatever your plan says, but have a way to manage your numbers. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, perfect. We've talked about self-employed and being employed. I think I've already touched on this at great sort of length. But I think it's probably just worth noting. Around 4.8 million self-employed people, accounting for 15% of the UK workforce, but only 31%, so only 3 out of 10 are saving into a pension pot. So the situation is going to be dire. I kid you not. I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's going to be serious. It is. It's going to be a challenging one. Okay. All right, next slide, please. It just gives you some example. Okay. Now, yeah, it's a 25%, which I mentioned. If you were paid into your self-employment pension scheme, just to give you an idea, £100 equivalent, right? So if you're trying to say you want your pension pot to be 300,000 in retirement, all right, or 400,000, you then have to work out the numbers from this. Does that make sense? Okay, depending on where you start saving. Next slide, please. Talked about 3 types of pension, but the one that I would definitely recommend is the SIP. All right, the third one, self-invested personal pension. Okay, it's available through any major provider, and that's where you want to be. It's very simple, straightforward. Put your money into it. Government puts in 25%. If you're using wealth managers, they would help you manage it. So your workplace pension, they also be managed by pension funds. It's also invested in properties and the stock exchange. Okay? So what you're doing is the same thing that they're doing if you were in a workplace pension. Okay? And you need the benefit for it to grow. You can't, you can, but in order for you to just say, I want to keep cash and I want it to grow enough for retirement, you'd have to almost be paying what you need to be getting every year for the next 25 years. So if you want 30,000 in retirement and it's coming from pension, and you want to keep it in cash, you have to then be putting 10,000 every year. Okay.
On the self-investment person, this is the first time I'm hearing that the government does a contribution. So it would be really nice. I didn't know they add like they would do with the
25%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They do.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
One is you're employed and you're paying the state the pension. and you also have your own company, aside your daily, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you pay pension in my limited company as well?
You can. Okay. So there's a limit of to how much pension you could have every year.
60,000?
Correct. It used to be 40,000. It got changed last year, I think, to 60,000 pounds. You can have up to 60,000 pounds going to your pension every year. You can also use your allowance from the last 3 years. So if, for example, you've not fully used up the allowance for the last 2 years or whatever, and this year you want to do 80,000 into your pension, they would allow you to do that. If you decide to go over the 60,000, then there is a tax charge on your pension, right? So they're trying to manage how much. And then there's also a lifetime allowance as well, which I can't remember the rate limit, just a little bit over $1 million. If your pot goes over that, then they start to charge you, okay? But here's what I say in terms of tax efficiencies. If you put money into your SIP, they give you money. But when you pull out money in future, you get taxed on it. Yeah, because they've given you the tax that you initially paid. But what you've had, that 25%, you've grown that. All right, because you're now making money on that section. When you get to retirement, you can take out 25% of your pot, lump sum, without tax.
Is it retirement of 5 years?
All right, that's retirement for personal pension.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you're allowed to take out from 55 in another 4 years' time. It goes up to 57. Yeah, the age is going up. Okay. So you can take out a chunk of it. Now, ISA, whatever, you don't get bonuses paid into it, but whatever you grow that to, you take that out in retirement, there's no tax. All right? So it's always, depending on your circumstances, it's always best to grow your ISA. But some people say, I want the government bonuses as well. So you have to crunch numbers. All right? For me, I do less on the pension, and I do more on the ISA. Okay. Next slide, please. Remember, I promised I would talk about how do you make sure the money goes far enough. Okay. And it's very simple. You guys all know E equals to MC to physics. You do it? No, you don't. You don't need to know that formula. You'll be pleased to know you don't need to know the Einstein formula. So, somebody's work of over 30 years research is condensed into this short statement called the 4% rule. Okay. And what does it simply mean? The way it's interpreted, I've also defined it differently in my plan. So I'll explain the real 4% rule as was done. Do you understand? Then I'll explain how I've interpreted it for myself. So basically, this research talks about, they looked at different pots of money, right? They look at people that took out, so let's say you have a pot. Let's use million, because I'll be able to do the percentages easier in my head, right? They looked at people that took out 6% every year, right? And they look at people that took out 5%. So those are people who are taking 60,000 every year. They look at people that are taking out 50,000. They look at people that are taking out 40,000 from their pot. And they find out that all of the people that went higher than 4%, they always run out of money before they passed on. Yeah? But when you look at 4% in itself, that's like 25 years on average. So what they've worked out based on the research is that you are unlikely to run out of money from your investment if you take out 4% of your pot in the first year and increase that by inflation every year. Because on average, that will last you for 25 years, even if your pot was not growing. Remember, it will still be invested. But at this point, invested in less risky environment, like bonds market, which is like lending money to the government and stuff like that. So your money is secure. They'll just print more money and pay you back, right? That's the rule. And that's what you need to remember. The 4% rule is how you, if you go to a financial planner, that's what they're going to say to you. Does that make sense? Now let me now explain how I have interpreted it for myself. Okay. If I have that £1 million pot, I still want to withdraw 4%, 40,000. I'm left with 960. I'm not reducing the market where I'm investing that. I want to grow that by another 6%. I want to grow my 960 by 6%, minimum. Okay? So really, when I'm taking out money, when I come back to take money out next year, it should be more than where I started from.
You only left 2% inflation.
Listen, the inflation here or there or not, right? Remember, my average is 6%, right?
Yes. And
Right.
if you take 4%, then you left that 2% margin.
No, it just means I'm growing my pots bigger. I'm not even worrying about inflation. I know it's a good thing to worry about. I'm talking, my plan is very simple. I don't take account of future value of money. I don't take account of inflation. I just know I'm working towards a pot. Whatever the pot is at the time, we would all be there. That's how I look at it. A good plan, with the financial plan, will look at inflation. Please don't get me wrong. I'm telling you the truth, right? Rather than saying, I have a single plan that has. No. If you go to a financial advisor, they will work out inflation. But whatever, we are all going to be inflated together. So why not just worry about where the money is going to come from? Rather than trying to say, I need to worry about, it's not going to be 40,000 next year, it's going to be 43,000 next year. Actually, let me even have the 40,000 to start with. Then maybe at that point we worry about inflation. But if I don't know where that 40,000 is coming from, inflation conversation is irrelevant. Does that make sense? Shall I repeat that again? My own personal plan is whatever I take out, I must grow the pot back higher than what I've taken out. So I just only want to live on interest. So even though I'm growing a pot for retirement, the 4% means I can just lock the retirement, be taking out money every year, live life, maintain family. But actually, no, I don't want to stop. I want to grow it further. There is a risk, right? Because in retirement, you should divest your risk appetite, reduce. That's what the plan says. And that's what you should do, right? That's what you should do, right? However, I don't want my pots going down every year. I don't even want to see whether that 4% rule will work. I will take 4% out. So any of the pots that I've mentioned to you, the ISA, the SIP, if I only have 100,000 in there, I'm only going to take out 4,000 a year from that pot. Then that's what you're generating to me. Because if I start taking out 6,000 or 7,000, that pot is going down. Is that making sense? Okay. All right. Next 2 slides, please. Let's just go to some examples. Actually, do you know what? Probably not going to do these examples. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. This is too small. I've got a better example. Next one. Next. All right, stop on that one, please. So, can you see the screen? Is it clear enough? Yeah. Okay. I have this calculator, and I promise I would share it with you. You can just put your number in there and just play around. This is saying someone has 25 years to invest. Okay? They're depositing £300 every month. Okay? Their average interest rate is 6%. Can you see it? Where I've done it at the bottom there. That section there. Yeah, 6%, that one. Thank you. 6%. All right? They do £300 monthly. It's 25 years, the pots would be 208,000. And that's the power of compound interest. Okay. I've got a maths teacher at the back nodding her head. Okay. I can't work out compound interest formula, but I have Excel that can do it. All right. So next slide, please. Okay. Someone doing double that. Okay. Can you see how much it grows? It doesn't. The power of compound doesn't mean it doesn't grow. It doesn't double up. Actually, it grows higher because there's more interest. the spreadsheet I will give you shows you how it grows on a yearly basis as well. And for me, if you're planning, it's encouraging to see how it grows. Let me go back. A little bit discouraging at the start because the interest in the first year is small. And that's generally the problem that I find that most people in our community have, because you save a certain amount and you see interest of £400 or £500. You're like, ah. But why I like this spreadsheet is I always look at 10 years' time. I look at 15 years' time and I think, if this thing is working like this and it's real, and the mathematician says it's real, this interest in 15 years' time, I can live okay just on this interest. But it takes patience, all right, to be able to wait to get to that point. People want to see that interest in 15 years' time today. Okay? Have we done the next slide, please? That's at 900 a month. So most contractors earning 400-500 a day should be able to take out 2 days of their money and do this. Even more. Even more. I challenged a young friend of mine who was doing 2 contracts. And I said to him, if you only had 1 contract, would you survive? He said, yes. Would you have savings? Yes. I said, which means that technically, the entire money from your second, you could actually invest it. Imagine if you could do $3,000 a month for 10 years. It's doable. I'm not saying even in the family, if you're going, oh God, we need to actively do something. If one person was not working, you would still have survived. So if you determine that actually one person's income is just going to be going to investment for retirement, it could work, right? It's a possibility. Okay. Next slide for conclusion. So we're not left in a limbo. We've got a plan. Actively plan, right? Drop a plan and look at possible income streams. We've talked about several income streams, right? Several. I am sure that somebody in here will be thinking, actually, I can think of another way where I can get income than the things I've mentioned. I'm not saying that's everything, please, okay? Remember, your plan is personal, okay? It's very personal, right? The number you need is personal, okay? Those statistics that I gave you about how much you need in retirement is a guide, okay? It doesn't mean that you have to. Your numbers could be higher than that, okay? I told you I've gone personally to financial advisors. They've said this is how much I need, and I've said, thank you, but I think I need more. Because what I realize is that they're working based on what the statistics and the averages say. But you don't know what my personal, they never asked me what's my personal plan. Okay. Please do remember, it's never too late to start. Okay? If you haven't started yet, it's never too late to start. Check you're on track to qualify for the state pension. All right? Somebody's already checked in this gathering, so do check. Save for retirement. And for people that are not financially savvy, seek professional advice. Not me. All right? I am a guy that has done research, and I'm just bringing knowledge to this thing. Okay? So please go online. There are free advice online. There are people you can go and talk to. I developed a personal spreadsheet for financial planning that asks some questions, and you can start putting things into it. But you can go to someone that can develop a plan for you. The most important thing is that you have a plan, all right? No matter how, even if it's written on the back of an envelope, have a plan, okay? Yeah. So an example of someone that wants a £50,000 annual income, I've shown that at the bottom. But that could change. You can move that around. What I've said is, you have an ISA that you can draw 6,400 from every year. Okay, in order for you to work out how much that pot needs to be, I'm going to ask our mathematician in the house.
Sorry.
Please help us. No, help us. So, remember we said we want to use a 4% rule.
Mm-hmm.
If I want 6,400 from my ISA savings, how much will my pot need to be?
6,400 times 25. Over 100,000.
No.
Sorry.
perfect. Yeah, that's a whole way.
Sorry, Uncle. That's the one part I didn't understand. The 4% rule, I didn't understand.
I'll come back to that. But at least today, we are mathematicians here.
Yes, please.
I can't do simultaneous equation. But, so basically what he just did there, let me break it down, was, I said, I'm just giving an example to say, someone could structure the pot like this, but you could structure it differently. If I was looking for 50,000 a year, I said, oh, I want to have an ISA that I can be withdrawing 6,400 from every year. I want rental income of 15,600 on buy-to-let. It could be one, it can be two. I want my personal or workplace pension to be giving me 18,000 a year, and I want my state pension to be giving me 10,000. If I add all of those together, that's 50,000. I then asked, based on the 4% rule, which means that I can only withdraw 4%. Remember, it's still you. You can withdraw everything in one go, but for you to be disciplined, you want to take out 4%. So I said, how much would my pot need to be for me to be able to take out 6,000 for every year? And Mr. Gbenga said 6,400 multiplied by 25. Okay? Which another way of doing it is 6,400 divided by 4 multiplied by 100. Okay? That's how much that would be. And rental income, you would have to look at how many properties do I need to get 15,600 a year. You can even just be one property in this part of the place, and then you're getting that amount. It's already paid off. Whatever, but it's your plan. Yes, ma'am.
So when you talk about the pot, so you're saying that this is an amount that you have made up in your head, that this is what I want to have every year. And it can be in different aspects.
Correct.
It can be from buy-to-let, it can be from pensions, it can be...
Correct.
Because I think I came late, so I lost out on a few things.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just trying to wrap my head around
Yeah.
what you had said in the past. So it can be made up of different...
It can be made up of different things. So what we've said is, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. The amount of money you need is up to you. It's personal, but it's got to be, you've got to be able to justify why you're saying, I need X, I need Y, right? Okay. Actually, I can't justify my pot, what I'm saying I need. I'm just planning just to make sure that if anything goes wrong, we're good. All right, so next slide, please. I've come to the end. I wanted to allow for some time for some questions. And then also, if we've got time, for people to just make 1 or 2, 3 notes about what they need to go and work on in their own personal time. So, you got questions online? So let's take questions for the people that are here first, and then we'll go to questions online. I'll probably need someone to help me read them out. But let's take questions. Are there any questions, pressing questions from the room first? Yes, ma'am.
We had the circles at the bottom where you had a different part and you said 4%. Is it 4% from each or 4% across the board? Combine everything together or 4%?
No. So, the slide has gone off the screen, but I still have it here. Those boxes at the bottom, right? One was ISA.
Yes.
ISA savings, remember we said anything from savings or pension, we don't want to be taking out more than 4%. The other one was rental income. All right? Rental income is not based on a percentage. It's based on you having properties that can give you net income of that amount. Okay. The third thing on there was personal or workplace pension. If it's workplace pension, it's depending on what your statement says. If it's your personal pension, you don't want to take out more than 4% from that pot too. Okay. And the last one was state pension. Based on your qualifying years. Okay, perfect. Any other questions from the room?
Have you heard about SAS? SASS, SSAS. It's like a SIP, but you can borrow money to invest.
Yes.
So yes, I just thought that would be nice also on the slide.
No.
Or look into.
So no. I'm aware of it. I think it's fairly new.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few years. I'm actually, and I hear what you say about putting it on the slide. I hope that nothing I've put on the slide is taken as a recommendation for anything. Okay? So the idea of what I do with this slide is just to bring knowledge. Does that make sense? So you then go away and seek professional advice or go and find out about what vehicle. You don't even have to do any of the things I've said here. What's important is that you have a plan. I think the objective of this conversation, and I know I spent a long time, is it's a plan. All right? How you do it, SAS, ISA, bank account saving, gold bars, cash under your bed. I really don't care, right? Because there will be people that, there are things that I personally would do that, even in my plan, I've written next to it, it doesn't make any financial sense. Make sense? I've written next to it, it does not make financial sense. However, it gives me peace of mind. So that's personal. All right? I actually then say, there's no amount, I know if I do something else, I can make more money. But no amount of money can give me the peace of mind that I have. So therefore, I do it this way. So if I will go somewhere and they will go, oh, I'll give an example. Are you better off paying off your mortgage or having multiple properties? I don't get involved in that debate. It's personal. Do you get what I mean? All right? If you ask me from a financial point of view, of course, it's better off for you to invest into multiple properties. All right? But if you pay off your mortgage, you have a peace of mind. All right? But you don't make as much money. But why must you think everybody's trying to make money all the time? Some people just want to have peace. All right? So peace over more money. All right? So SaaS, people can do their research. It's good that you've mentioned it, but if I probably won't add it onto my slides. Question from the back.
I have a question, but you know when you were saying about taking out, so are you taking this money out for the purposes of some sort of vacation
No.
or something, or just taking it out to maybe do a project in your
Anybody want to answer that for me?
Just to leave on, because when you're 65, you stop working.
There's no more money coming in.
No more money coming in, so this will sustain.
This is just to sustain you and live on. This is what provides your income. All right? For the number of years that we've said.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do you want to help with the questions on the board?
Yes. The first one says, can adults also have an ISA? So
Okay.
question on
First question on the board says, can adults also have an ISA? Yes.
But not
no
lifetime
lifetime
ISA.
ISA. Over
No. They asked about ISA.
That's true.
Not LISA. ISA. Okay.
So it says, will the state pension age remain at 66 until 2026? Government can change anytime.
Yeah.
No one can determine.
All right. So I think you're getting an answer from the House. No one can determine when it changes. I actually think it's changing anyway. They've already said it's changing to 68. Thank you. It's going to. I just already gone to 68. It's 68 already. So, however, I'm happy to almost put. I'm not saying this is gospel or this is, but it's very unlikely that we'll go to 70. All right, but I can never say we'll never go to 70. But very, very unlikely, only because our bodies cannot sustain working up until 70. Okay. But they're increasing it because obviously there's a challenge with money and, they need money to go far and they don't want to start drawing up on state pension until that age.
France is now 70 or something. France or some European country.
I said it's a, sorry?
France was, I think it was 64, it changed to 67, and they rioted for weeks.
Okay. So France was 64 and it changed to 67 and they rioted for weeks. Okay, what's the next question?
Equities and mutual funds the same thing? Equities?
The word use of equities. No, they're not the same thing. All right? Equities refer to stocks. Okay? Stocks in companies. So when you buy a stock in a company, you're saying you're buying an equity in a company. Mutual is saying I am buying in multiple companies. Okay? So there you can interchange them. Right? But one is buying an equity in, I want to buy in, and my favorite at the moment is Legal and General, even though the price is going down, stock is going down. And I explain to you why in a minute. And I read something online that got me into Legal and General. Mutual funds is a safe bet for someone that is not prepared or you don't have the appetite of seeing your money go down or fluctuate all the time, right? So yeah, that's how you do it.
Final question says, how does one set up a SIP?
Okay, amazing question. Almost the same as setting up an Amazon account. The only difference is you need to add your NI number. It is that straightforward, right? It is not a complicated process. You go online, you find a provider that is SIP approved, okay? And there are many of them. You can go to Pension Service, go online and have a look. I can share what I use personally, which I mentioned, Hargreaves Lansdown and Vanguard. I prefer Vanguard more because Vanguard is got simplicity in it. You can read. You don't. Hargreaves Lansdown has over 10,500 options to choose from. Vanguard is almost like a dummy guide for, like, it speaks to you in English. All right? And even for a financial guy, I prefer that. Okay? Because I know where I'm going. Those percentages I gave you, you can go on there. If it's your first time on the page, you'll find it within 6-7 minutes. Right? You don't need to call me and say, oh, yeah, show me. If you move around, you'll find it, right? So you go on there, put your details, like you open a normal account. The only difference is they ask for your NI number. That's it. And then they ask you to deposit money in, you deposit the cash in, and you pick what item you want them to invest today. So it's that straightforward. It is not a complicated process. Okay. But that's that. Any other questions in the room?
Would some SIP allow you to invest the money yourself?
They all allow you to invest your money yourself.
Okay. So you choose the stock you want.
Correct.
You sell when you want, you buy.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry, so, but then before you, yeah, I'll come to you. However, remember when I talked about stock and mutual funds, right? Please, and please don't buy individual stocks unless you've done your research and you know what you're doing. Because you come back and talk about what my auntie said and what I said about losing money. Okay? If you go and buy, you hear somebody is talking about Apple is moving, Elon Musk is moving, right? And you buy, right? You've got to be careful not to pull yourself into something and you start to see money go down and you say, Minister Dotto said ISA and stocks. I said mutual funds, bear in mind, mutual funds. Now, if you do, there's some things called tracked against indexes, S&P 500, NASDAQ, all of those things, 30-year history, they've always outdone any other form of investment. S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in America. How would they not go up? I'm putting my money in the top 500 companies. The moment you start to do badly, they remove you from that pile and they bring the best company into it. So I'm giving you my money to operate, to run the business. Who other person would I want to invest in? There are good investment out there for startup companies. Your money can go 1,000-fold. But at the same time, it can go boom. And that's it. So I do things like that. Don't get me wrong, I do it, but with things I can lose. But not with my future. Yeah? So the some numbers you mentioned, I've lost the same. But they were not within my plan. So so I will never take what I've just said to you here and go and buy stock with it. I need my 6% yearly. Even if I make a loss, I know if I'm in that environment, next year will be fine. All right? So that's where I am. Minister Oba.
Yeah, I just want to check if SIP comes with any charges?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
All right. I think I mentioned it earlier. Depending on what company you go to, they have different charges. Okay? I think Vanguard on the one I mentioned to you, the one I actually mentioned to you, please make a note of it. It's called Life Strategy 100. Like the one I gave you the percentages of return for the last 10 years. It's called Life Strategy 100. Now, their charge is 0.22% on the size of your portfolio. Did you get that? 0.22%. That's less than 0.5%. That's actually less than 0.25%. And when you read the terms and conditions, they also cap it. So let's say your portfolio is that big. Once they've charged you your 0.22%, yeah, and you've paid fees up to a certain amount, they will go, this account does not need to pay fee anymore. because someone could have a portfolio of $1 million and they don't want you to be paying thousands and thousands of fees. So their approach is very chill. What they don't have, they're big, they're very big. Actually, they've won the best SIP provider for the last 4 or 5 years. Check them online. They don't have a customer service experience. So there are other places called like St. James's, Wealth Managers. Those ones we invite you to the office in Liverpool Street. You can sit down, you have tea and coffee. All right, they charge you 2% a year. That's 2% a year. But these guys everything's all done online. Their overhead cost is down. So when I spoke to, oh God, what are they called now? It's not St. James's. I spoke to another company, Fisher Trust, or Fisher Investment Trust. They charge about 2% as well per annum. They're like, oh, we invite you to experience days, to seminars, to conferences. I said, I don't need all of that. I'm okay with Vanguard. Why would I come to you? Oh yeah, we can make you more money. And in fairness, when they told me what they did with their clients' money in the last 10 years, it outweighed Vanguard. Yes? But I didn't move. I'm not saying you don't move. If that's where you want to go to, I didn't move because I had already exceeded my 6% target. I'm comfortable with where I am. Right? But they outperformed. They did better than Vanguard. So I'm not saying Vanguard is the best company. Do your research. Do your research. Okay. There's so many companies and providers out there. But even when somebody was telling me, oh, we'll offer you this customer service experience, we can make you more money. But they can't guarantee that they can make you more money in the future, right? They can only tell you what they did in the last 10 years. Whilst he was telling me what they did in the last 10 years, I was online, I was comparing it to what Vanguard did. And I was like, they didn't do too badly. You probably did maybe a couple percentage better. But I just feel at ease here.
Vanguard, they've been around for a long time.
They have been around for a long time. Okay. Any other questions? I'll take the last question, and then we'll round up. No more questions in the room? Any questions online? Okay. That leads me to...
I think it would be nice also if you can give examples of where people can start from. So, no, I'm saying like where they can get 5%, 6%, 10% ideas so that when they go online, they know how.
Did I not do that?
I didn't remember you mentioning specific places where you can get 5%.
I give you percentages for a company that for the last 10 years.
Or the mutual funds. Yeah, that's one example.
I can't give more than that. Yeah. And I even give the name of it as well. There's another one.
Are mutual funds the same as index funds?
No, they're not. Very similar, but they're not. Index funds are the things I talked about. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow's, Dow Jones, I've got it on my phone. So those are the stock exchange of different countries. Those are index funds. Okay. The mutual funds is, how a mutual fund is put together is, a wealth manager or a company decides to say, all of these companies start here in green. I'm going to buy shares in them. All right? I'm going to weigh up how much shares I want to buy in them, put them together, now create something called Dotun's Fund. Right? So any money I get is trickled down into those companies in the ratio that I have already established for my fund. So it's not an index fund, they are a mixture of companies. All right, so almost very similar.
I just want to ask, you mentioned legal in general. Is fidelity, is it part of it? Are they part of it?
I mentioned legal and general, and it's quite interesting. So legal and general is not doing well at the moment. But the reason why I mentioned legal and general was, I think I said when I introduced this, I go online reading a lot about investments. and there's something called Money Tool or something like that. They write lots of articles. And then they wrote an article that, are we all aware what dividend income is? Yeah. Okay. There are some companies that pay dividend income. And then they said, if you wanted, I hope I remember the number correctly now. Yeah, I think they said if you wanted a passive income of around about £2,000 a year, that was what I read that, yeah? That then you should buy 15,000 shares in Legal & General, because over the last 6 to 8 years, the dividend yield has been around 8.6% every year. So I'm thinking, so if I bought shares in this company, I own X amount of shares in this company, 2,000 is guaranteed every year. I remember what I said to you about smaller increments. 2,000 is a lot in my plan. So I ventured into Legal & General. Now, remember, I've gone against my slide rule a little bit. Remember, I said not buying individual stock. However, I did not buy that for my plan. So I did not leave my plan. So what I did was, I saved more. So I then bought Legal & General. As a result, it's gone down. Which is pretty much what I said to you, individual stock. It's gone down. But I didn't buy Legal & General for growth. Okay? In the first 6 months I bought it, they paid me $1,500. And I said, this thing is exactly what I said, right? And then we started a new year, and that projection is that amount that the article said, even though my stock has gone down. So I'm thinking, okay, every year, as long as Legal & General has been around for hundreds of years, right? So I'm a part owner of Legal & General, albeit a very small. So if I get that $2,000 every year, I just ignore that, I'm fine. Actually, how about if I can grow that 10 times before retirement? But I've not added it onto my written plan. So I'm doing it as a side hustle on the plan. Make sense? That's why I mentioned Legal & General. So Fidelity and all of those places, they're all together. There's so much going on with them. Some people would look at, they research the market, they look at stock, that stock is down, let me buy it, it will go up, blah, blah, blah. But I don't do that. It's not my area of expertise. But the only reason why I bought that was I read an article. It says they pay dividend. And I went on the dividend calculator. I did my research. I actually realized that they actually pay dividends. And interestingly enough, if you own the stock at least, you don't have to even own it for a whole year to get your dividends. This thing is not bad though. I thought, okay, I'm not going to, let's just see actually, if I can have spare money. So if I have 300 spare money, I just buy, I've done my plan, I just buy Legal & General, because I'm thinking, if in the next 15, 20 years, I can own 100,000 worth of shares, it means that every time they have board meeting and they pay dividends, I'm sorry? I get paid. Okay, we'll take, this is going to be the final, and then.
It says the Foresters Financial, I don't know who those are, do mutual funds.
Okay.
They should Google it.
Unfortunately, I think when they introduced me, they gave a lot of accolades. I don't know much. I have not kept anything back. I don't know who Foresters Financials are. Please Google them, do your research, make sure that they are registered with the FCA. All right, don't put your money into anything that is not registered with the FCA, please. I'm not saying don't do anything, but I don't do crypto. Anything that can, anything, and I've lost money as a result, right? Don't get me wrong. When people have invited me, if you start giving me high returns, I run. Because I either think it's a scam or it's a pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme. Thank you. I'm scared. And I've seen people who made money, but I don't go. If you start to give me ridiculous percentages, I'm scared already. I'm not even listening to you anymore. So I don't know who they are, but do check who they are. Have a look online. But I close by saying the little knowledge I've acquired is what I have come to share today. I always say, I'm not selling anything. I'm not asking you to come for consultation. I'm not asking you to come to pay me anything. That's the little. I don't know it all. Please do go online, add to what you have gained here from here today. You will see other things. And if you find other things that I haven't mentioned, please do send to me on WhatsApp so I can also gain from that knowledge. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.